is that my name's Sabrina, and most people say, "Oh, the teenage witch." And so it then became the WordPress witch, just because I specialise in WordPress and pretty much.
Hello and welcome to episode 33 of Rockstar CMO FM. The M is for marketing, the F is for, well, you decide. As you're probably asking yourself, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I'm your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of Rockstar CMO, your monthly dose of marketing street knowledge. You can find us at rockstarcmo.com or Rockstar CMO on Twitter and LinkedIn. And you can also find all the past episodes of this show and the show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast. This episode is recorded on Friday, the 23rd of October. I hope you've had a good week, you are well and keeping safe, and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. Thank you for joining us. We have a splendid set list for this week's show. I have a fun conversation with Sabrina Chevannes, founder of Complex Creative here in London, who studied medicine and law as a Mensa member, chess expert, and the self-styled WordPress witch. I again take a bar stool next to my friend and content marketing mentor, Robert Rose, in the virtual Rockstar CMO bar. But first, I'll take a look at what's happening on rockstarcmo.com. Right, let's get started, shall we? This week, we published a brand new issue of Rockstar CMO, the Life for Rent issue. If you're a regular reader or listener, then you know we name each issue after a classic album, and you guys can decide if Dido's Life for Rent is a classic. But the title was perfect, as our house band of marketing writers and Rockstar CMOs discuss building their brands on the rented land of big tech and social media channels, or build an audience on something they own. It's a playlist of fabulous articles, and I don't want to give too much away, but it seems the supergroup we assembled for this issue agree. It's a mix, and they share some wonderful insights and advice that I'll probably dip into on future shows. You can check out the latest issue of Rockstar CMO at rockstarcmo.com and click on the latest issue link on the homepage. I will, of course, include a link to that in the show notes. Right, that's enough for me for now. Let me introduce you to Sabrina Chevannes, who is the founder and MD of Complex Creative, a full-service agency based in London that includes Fitbit, Pirelli, UNICEF, and The Walking Dead on their impressive roster of clients. Sabrina has a fascinating background, having studied law and medicine, is a women's international chess master and coach, an author, and sits on the Creative Council for the British Interactive Media Association. Fascinating conversation. I hope you enjoy it. I certainly did. Hi, Sabrina. Welcome to Rockstar CMO FM. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. It's nice to speak to you again. So, Sabrina, for the listeners that have not come across you before, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Where do I start? So my name's Sabrina Chevannes. I run a creative agency called Complex Creative. I guess when I'm not doing that, I'm probably watching the football. I'm a big Liverpool fan. So last year was a great season. This year's starting not so great, but it's okay. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm out just socializing. I love seeing my friends. I love traveling usually when we're not restricted, although I have been managing to get away a little bit. And so I've got a lifetime goal to travel to every country in the world.
Wow. How are you doing against that goal?
I've been to 81 countries so far.
Good Lord. I thought I was quite well travelled, and then I meet somebody like you and I realise actually I've been nowhere, so that's fantastic.
I haven't been anywhere new in the last 2 years though. I've been to the same countries over and over again, which is just silly. It's not helping my goal. But and now this year, now I can't travel at all. So.
No. Do you count individual US states?
No, I've been to 17 US states as well, which is more than most Americans have.
Yeah, exactly. That's always good for the stats if you count the states.
Yeah, I wish, but no.
All right, but obviously, we've chatted before, and I know a little bit about your story, and it's a great story. You, as well as founding digital agencies like you're doing now, you have a degree in law. You've studied medicine. You're a Mensa member at 5. You're an expert at chess. You've done acting. So I'm not really sure where to start with this interview. Maybe what inspired you to choose marketing?
I guess it was sort of an accidental choice. I guess you kind of almost listed it in reverse order there. So yeah, I yeah. So I was a Mensa member at the age of 5. Still a Mensa member technically. And yeah, I started off playing chess quite young. Got pretty good at it. Loved the travel. That was it really. I think I got to play chess internationally, and so it sent me to different countries, and that was obviously really attractive to me. Meeting so many different people from different cultures, learning about their life and things like that. So that's what got me into traveling. And then, when I went, I always kind of wanted to do medicine. My whole family are medically oriented. And so I applied to medical school and thought that was what I wanted to do. Went, and then during my, I think, second year of medical school, third year of medical school, I thought I want to start my own company. And so I ended up doing a teaching agency at the time. I was doing private tutoring anyway, so then I turned it into a bit of an agency, combined that with my love of chess, and so kind of founded, it was the London Academy of Chess and Education is what it was called.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was teaching chess in schools as well as doing private tutoring for exams and things like that. And that's kind of where, I've always had a design background, always been quite strong with the design, but that's where I kind of started doing the whole kind of digital creative kind of thing. And naturally with a company, you need to have some online presence, you need, your brand assets and all that kind of stuff. So I started to do my own stuff for that. And then I tried to hire someone to build a website, because I'd designed something, but I didn't really know much about web development at the time. So I hired people to do it, and literally all of them sucked. So frustrating. And it was just it was so bad in the fact that I'd point stuff out was really obvious, and they were like, oh, or I'd say, is this not possible? I'd say, no, it's not possible. I'd do a quick Google search and I'd be like, well, why can't you do this? And they're like, oh, and I'm like, is this really the caliber of people out there doing this? And for right or wrong, I've always been a fan of, the old adage where they say, if you want something done properly, do it yourself. So that's basically what I did with that website. I literally went on Amazon and bought HTML and CSS for Dummies, and read that book, and then built my own website. Nice. And that's essentially what I did. And people, when I launched it, everyone loved it. Everyone was saying, oh, it's amazing. I really like the look of it. Can you do me one? So I ended up doing some for other people. This gradually then turned into a thing. And whilst I was trying to be teaching, I ended up freelancing on the side, doing design work, building people websites, etc., etc. And it just kind of fell on my lap that way. And eventually I was doing that so much. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I remember even still playing chess, and I was at a professional chess tournament. I remember being at say the Commonwealth Championships representing England, and in between my games I'd go back and start coding a website. So it was crazy. So I enjoyed doing it, and eventually I ended up freelancing for several years just doing that. I kind of gave up the teaching side of things, and ended up with so many clients I decided to
Do
start
it.
an agency. Yeah, like that became
Nice.
my career path, basically. It was
Nice. Quite a
yeah.
lot of people I talked to actually on the agency side found themselves as accidental,
Yeah,
either
really.
accidentally in marketing or accidentally as agencies.
I find that we're definitely in the minority, though. Most people that I speak to have kind of been had an agency life, and they've all like worked for big agencies, and then they were like working for someone else sucks. I'm going to start my own agency, kind of thing. That's kind of most people's paths.
Yeah. And how have you found that, like being in somebody else's world, I suppose?
Yeah, so that's been, I think, the hardest struggle. I think that, I feel like I've been at a massive disadvantage because I started it essentially from scratch with no connections, nothing, and it's very daunting. You're just sort of, it's like, I guess, moving to another country and not knowing the language and not knowing anyone. That's essentially how it felt. Whereas lots of other people would have been at a big agency, they've have all the connections, probably have clients already that they could take on with them, and they're starting off by themselves, but with a very big head start. And so it has been very difficult to do. I like to feel that now at least I'm established a little bit, but I definitely feel that the lack of connections has been a major disadvantage.
Yeah. I'm gonna and so what sort of work do you guys do at Complex Creative?
So we specialize in bespoke WordPress websites, so the design and build of WordPress websites, but we are full service, truly in-house agency based in central London. So we do all sorts of branding, graphic design, then the builds, and then digital marketing. So whether that's your SEO, your copywriting, or social media, we kind of do all of that.
Oh, very interesting. And I'll include a link to that, obviously, in the show notes for people that are interested in what you do. Now, I'm just going to kind of rewind a little bit. I've told your story in the backwards, so I'm not sure where this fits into your story. But you've written books on chess, haven't you, for kids? I'm a big fan of books, mostly marketing books. And so you're an author. And how that must have been fun. How did that go?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I was doing a lot of teaching. My academy was actually one of the largest in the UK at the time. So it was quite popular, and I was really lucky in the fact that I think a lot of people who have a dream of becoming an author, they write their material, they work really hard, and then they desperately try to find a publisher who wants to promote their book. I was so lucky that I had it literally the other way around. People were aware of who I was and my teaching expertise, and I have really good results from teaching. So I had publishers literally approached me asking me, did I write them a book, which was great. And I think that as a kid, I never read chess books because frankly, I found them boring. So I was, and so I struggled whenever parents would come up to me and say, can you recommend me a chess book for kids? And I was like, not really. They're all really boring. So I always wanted to write one myself and just never thought it was possible. Again, it's one of those things where, until it happens, you don't realize things are possible, which is why I guess you should never give up on your dreams. But yeah, so I was lucky in that sense. Someone came to me and allowed me to do it. And the idea is that the book is not like a normal instructional book. It's written in pure dialogue. So it's about a little girl called Jessica and a little boy called Jamie and their friends. And they're about like 7, 8 years old, and they just argue over the rules of chess and what's right and what's wrong. And literally they compare it to Harry Potter and Star Wars. And it's basically, they're based on all the kids I've ever taught playing chess. All they actually talk about in a classroom. So therefore it's really relatable, and it's pure dialogue. And at the end of it, obviously they do learn how to play properly. And so, it's sold now, I think over 40,000 copies. It's in like 18 different languages. It's really cool. So I'm pretty proud of that book, to be honest.
And I also like the way that there's a theme here, in that that you just did it yourself. There wasn't a good agency that you liked, so you created your own agency. There wasn't a great chess book that you liked, so you wrote your own. So
I'm not a fan of that saying.
But back to your agency, you're based here in London. How, I got to ask, I ask all my guests, unfortunately for the last, how long is it now? 7 months. How's the pandemic been affecting you guys? Are you remote work? Have you got a big team? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so we're all remote at the moment. I mean, do try to meet up every so often. Well, not now. We're back. We're on tier 2 now, so it's like, well, no, we can't really. I guess we can, but you know, why add extra risk when you don't necessarily need to? It's definitely affected us. I mean, obviously, unlike say the hospitality sector or something like that, we're not affected in that sort of way, but. Creativity is so much better face to face. It really is. And, you know, I think we had a great agency culture. We would always be in the office together. We'd always be chatting and, you know, joking, go for food. And there were so many people around us all the time. And it was just a great, fun environment. And, you know, it was easy to get inspired or motivated to be creative. And I think going from that to a very you know, just like same four walls every day, the same monotonous stuff. Like it has been very difficult for all of us in terms of motivation and creativity. So yeah, I've not really enjoyed that. And even the relationships with your clients, you know, lots of ours would be in the same office building. We'd have loads in the office building. We'd have lots just all within, you know, the square mile of city centre. So I'd walk 15 minutes to go see a client whenever they needed it. It was so much better. And now it's just everyone's kind of a mess. Everyone's all over the place. And yes, we can do it remotely, but it's never the same. It really isn't.
No. And I was also talking to a client of mine. They said they found that instead of like the odd little conversations you would have either with a client or with a colleague, it now gets set up as a meeting, as a Zoom call. And that is just, you know, draining everybody, that everything now has turned into a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's and it's just like every time we're having an email thread, it was just like, oh, should we make this a Zoom call? And it's just becoming so tedious and long, and everything's taking 3 times longer to get done or decisions to be made, and communication it's just not right. It is draining for sure.
Yeah. Have you seen any positives? I mean, some folks have seen that. You know, that probably not the same with your organisation, quite small and you're quite flexible anyway, but they've seen, some people have seen some benefits from the flexible working and from working from home. And they've also seen a little shift in their clients and getting to know them a little bit better. Have you seen any of those kind of positives on your side?
I think, like, obviously it's not all doom and gloom, but I think that those who see the positives either have like a very large organisation, and maybe they weren't efficient in their processes as well. So if they've seen positives, that's lots of organisations in person would go through all these things to get stuff done. But I don't think we were like that. We always had a very efficient process, and it's just hindering it now, I think. I mean, I guess if I had to try and force myself to find positive, it would be, I guess, I don't know, you're less tired travelling to from work. I feel more tired, to be fair. I'm struggling to find some positives on this situation. I really am, unfortunately.
All right, now let's shift to something a little bit more fun then. Well, fun and geeky at the same time. You're described as the WordPress witch, right? Now, I'm not the one making this up, right? This is written into your LinkedIn profile. So tell us a bit about being the WordPress witch, and also, like, I mean, this might be a bit geeky for some of the listeners, but you know, if you're from a content management background, a lot of people get a bit sniffy about WordPress as a platform for corporate websites. Tell us about both those things: how you became the WordPress witch and what you think about it.
Well, quite simply, I think, is that my name's Sabrina, and most people say, "Oh, the teenage witch." And so it then became the WordPress witch, just because I specialize in WordPress, and pretty much then when anyone ever wants to talk to someone about WordPress, they go, "Oh, speak to Sabrina. She knows her stuff." I've been doing it for years, and I'm quite an advocate for WordPress. So yeah, that's kind of it in terms of like, you know, WordPress as a CMS. I mean, it is debated, but I feel like it shouldn't even be debated anymore. I feel like maybe years ago when WordPress started, it was like a blogging tool, and it was kind of minimalistic. But I feel that now, with the level of, you know, functionality that you can achieve within a WordPress website, it's no doubt a CMS, and obviously the leading CMS. There's all these percentages out there, which is like what WordPress powers 35% of the internet or something like that. So it's quite crazy actually. And if it wasn't good, they all wouldn't be using it. Like big guys like CNN and stuff like that are using WordPress. So if it wasn't able to, so I do quite a lot of webinars on that, like dispelling WordPress myths, because I do have a lot of clients who come to me going, oh, well, I heard WordPress has loads of security issues. Is that true? Or I heard all WordPress websites are really slow. Is that true? And obviously there are all these rumors going around. And personally, I think it's like the proper web dev dudes who are like, WordPress isn't a website. Like, that's not real WordPress development. And then they just slag it off. I think that's a lot of what it's come from. And a lot of it is because it's one of those, code-free solutions. So there are a lot of amateurs who are building WordPress websites in the wrong way, doing all of those mistakes, which lead to security breaches, which lead to big, heavy, slow websites, which do cause these problems. And then obviously they have some grounds for these cases. But that's why we specialize in bespoke design of WordPress websites, because then we can create them in the right way. And that's what we do. And that's why I think it, Well,
I think there's a debate that's rumbled on for at least a decade that I can remember. I remember writing a blog post about whether WordPress was CMS, and I just said, no, yes, it is. It just isn't a very good one. But that was 10 years ago, and so things have really moved on. So conscious of your time, I'm going to get to our final question. We have a regular feature on Rockstar CMO, the swimming pool, where we throw all the bullshit and snake oil of this great marketing industry into there. What would you nominate that we need to chuck into the swimming pool, our portal to hell? Portal to marketing hell.
I'm not even sure where we'd start with that. What sort of suggestions?
Where do you start?
I don't even know. Like, it's such a big question. Well, what suggestions have you had in the past that so I can?
I can't give all that away. Well, I mean, some people. We've had quite a lot of people who are annoyed by the interruption marketing that people do and the untargeting emails that they get. Some people are annoyed by all of those things. Banner ads we've had thrown in. We've had all sorts of things like that. What is it that marketers do to you that you don't like?
It's such a difficult question. It is like one of those things. I just think that, like, when you do something but you hate when other people do the same thing to you. I think, you know what? This is going to be controversial. I think, like, because marketing automation is kind of what everyone loves at the moment. It's, obviously naturally the less you do, the better it is. And AI is becoming a big thing as well. I hate that. I hate the most leading technological thing of AI. I kind of hate it because it's so impersonal, and it's just like, you get basically, for example, LinkedIn has been ruined for me because there are thousands and thousands of people that add you and immediately sell you something. So your inbox is completely blocked to people who are just trying to sell you something, and you miss all the actual genuine opportunities. And the automated stuff are just so robotic. And that's actually why, for example, I am known as the WordPress witch, but I have a little witch emoji on my LinkedIn thing, because then, and my LinkedIn name, because then who's automating it. Because a bot would just take the first emoji. So when it will say hello, instead of saying hello Sabrina, it will say hello and show the witch. And so you can filter it out and know who's doing it. And it's just, as someone obviously who wants to get more leads for my agency, I get loads of lead generation specialists coming to me, asking me, if they can manage my LinkedIn profile. And you end up getting yourself be branded as one of these annoying selling people. And it's just like, that's the last thing I want. And they're like, I will guarantee you all these leads, but then like basically you become the troll and you become the annoying person. And I just think that it's just not a nice way to go. I know it's slower to do it traditionally, but I just think it's better quality.
I've maintained an old-fashioned view with LinkedIn is I only connect with people that I've met or done work with or talked to, and I ignore all of the connection requests. And everybody tells me that that's not the way that LinkedIn works anymore. But I'm like, yeah, but if I do, then it's going to turn into the dumpster fire that is Twitter for me.
Right, exactly. And I also wish I did that. And actually, I'm at the point now I'm actually removing connections. Which is a long process, but I wish I'm going to be much more selective too. But LinkedIn is now becoming, I mean, like, maybe I should have thrown this in because it's a brand new thing, but maybe I should throw in LinkedIn stories. I already hate the idea of it. I just think that LinkedIn used to be so professional. It used to be basically like your online resume, a professional place of sharing articles and thought leadership pieces. And now it's become an amalgamation of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And it's just a bit much now.
Yeah. Well, I think they're both excellent nominations. And I think they'll be making a splash in a future issue. So thank you very much, Sabrina. And really nice talking to you. And if our readers want to find out a bit more about the WordPress witch or about chess or any of those fascinating things we discussed, where can they find you?
Well, I'm on all of those social media platforms.
I can find you on LinkedIn.
I'm going to ignore your request. No, but you can find me on Twitter or Instagram or something like that. I'm on any of those. So give me a shout. I'm happy to answer questions.
And your agency, remind us?
So we're called Complex Creative, and our website is wearecomplexcreative.com.
Sweet. All right. And I'll include a link to all of those things in the show notes. Thank you very much for your time, Sabrina. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Sabrina. Very much enjoyed that conversation. And I think we can all agree with that LinkedIn experience. Right, it's Friday evening here at the Rockstar CMO penthouse in London, and I think it's time to round off the week with a cocktail in the virtual Rockstar CMO bar, where maybe I'll find my friend and content marketing guru, Robert Rose. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, hello, my friend. Fancy meeting you here. Yes, well, we're here in the bar again.
Yes.
It's
nice.
I have all eyes toward the coming couple of weeks here as the future of this country will be in the balance. So there's a lot going on, but we are drinking, and we are having a lovely, lovely drink. This is a perfect one for the chill that is about the air, and the depth and despair of fall. I'm calling it the Cinnamon Paloma. And you may have heard of the Paloma, the classic Paloma, which of course is grapefruit juice and tequila. I'm calling a Cinnamon Paloma, and quite frankly, it was something I just threw together, and it ended up being just really, really tasty. The key is you find a tequila with really heavy tones of vanilla. There is a brand called Clase Azul, which is a really nice choice of this, but any tequila that has a really heavy tone of vanilla or oak will be what you want here. And then basically, it's that with just a squeeze of grapefruit, not even a lot, just a squeeze of grapefruit, and then cinnamon, and you add cinnamon to that. And it is delightful, and it is a very fall-like drink. And it is just absolutely spectacular.
That sounds delicious, as usual. And I think I only know about Paloma because you've probably had one on this show. So the classic. So yes, I'm going to reach over to my my desktop bar and have a look at what I have, because I have none of those ingredients, as you can imagine. But I do have Hendrick's Gin. You were talking about sponsorship last time. How about if do you think this will work?
I'm waiting for Hendrick's to call you up and go.
Yeah, it's either that or Bombay Sapphire. I just like the way the Hendrick's opened. The Bombay Sapphire hasn't got that sort of...
Last week, I mean, you are not availing yourself of some sales out to Hendrick's to say, dudes, at least give me free gin.
Exactly. I've dropped a little bit of ice in there, but I didn't do it close enough to the microphone that I don't think you can hear. And
everybody who listens to this podcast, here's a task.
Both of them.
Hashtag whatever Hendrix's hashtag is, and get them to pay attention, because they should come listen to this episode. And Hendrix people, we've been doing this for, I don't know, 10 weeks now, 10 or 12 weeks.
More than that. Yeah, it started at episode 9, and this is going to be episode 32, I think, if I've got that. And
tens of people listen to this thing, Hendrix.
Tens. Sometimes tens, yeah. I should also choose a brand of tonic. It'd probably be Fever Tree or something like that. But yeah, it's not Fever Tree that I'm using quite. It's what's this? This is Schweppes I have in front of me right now. But
matter, but I suppose.
Oh, Fever Tree will tell you it will, because so much of your drink is the tonic. So they'll say that you should choose your tonic wisely. But yes, so I should have talked through my drink, but I think everybody knows what I just did. I put some tonic into some gin, and then I'm going to pretend that tonic is very similar to one of the ingredients from your drink, like the cinnamon.
I see. There you go.
And so that was that. Oh, I've got to taste it. Hang on a minute. Oh yes, that's got the fall or autumn, as we call it, written right through it. Although I could probably drink those through the summer as well. And probably have. So we've got these lovely autumnal drinks. What was it called again?
That would be the Cinnamon Paloma.
The Cinnamon Paloma, lovely. And it's fall, it's autumn. Where are we going to be enjoying these drinks this evening?
Well, I think we have to be somewhere in a cabin, somewhere on a lake, maybe in the mountains. You know, it needs to be like, we need the full on sort of in the wilderness sort of, vibe here. I'm thinking on a big lake. So maybe. There's a lake up in Northern California, Lake Shasta, which would be wonderful. But really any lake with in a forest, lots of hiking, maybe a soft snow falling. And, I think that's where.
Do you get much of the change of the fall leaves and stuff?
Not here. Not here in Southern California. No, it's perennially summer here, basically. I mean, we do get some of the, when it gets really cold here, and really cold is in rock and roll quotes. So I'll forgive me. I'll speak in Fahrenheit here, but so in the 40s or 50s, which is cold for Southern California. We will get some change of leaves, but not much. I mean, but up in Northern California, they really do. They absolutely.
Yeah, nice. So, but that sounds great. So we're sitting in a cabin. I'm presuming that it's warm enough for us to be overlooking the lake on some kind of beautiful deck or something like that.
That's right.
Enjoying these drinks. And what thoughts have we turned to in our conversation once we've got past the football and the.
As we get closer here to sort of the politics of life, one of the things that I have started to recognize, and I started to see a pattern, which is how much of politics is loaded questions, right? And this comes from the media in many ways. Just for definitional sake, the loaded question is basically a question that, already pushes an answer, right? The agenda of the answer, no matter what your answer to the question is. Yeah. So an example, like, I was watching the news, right? And so the news headline, and I won't name the network, but the news headline was, do you think the media purposely divides Republicans and Democrats, right? All right. And so even if you say no, you're still admitting that the media divides people. It just does it accidentally, not purposely, right? So, or somebody in your social media feed, right, will say something like, are you actually going to vote for this corrupt politician? There's no way to answer that without admitting that the politician is corrupt. And so that's loaded questions. And so the interesting thing is, I've been doing a lot of research in thought leadership papers, and a lot of it in technology, a lot of it in customer experience. So I've been downloading a lot of thought leadership over the last couple of weeks. And interestingly, it's mostly crap.
So it's not thoughtful or leadership-y.
No, it's neither thoughtful nor leadership-y. Yeah, there is not a lot of thought being led. And interestingly, the one piece that I did download, which was actually really good, was the study done by LinkedIn and Edelman about thought leadership, and they found that it was only 15% of decision makers actually rate the quality of thought leadership as excellent or good. And
there's a lot of stats in that report. I've actually used that report in presenting the value of thought leadership. Yeah,
it's a really good sort of very meta thing, and but I was fascinated by how many of the papers themselves actually start with a loaded question, right? I mean, they actually how many of them actually begin with an idea of a loaded question, with the technology, I ran across one title that said something to the effect of, should CMOs continue their failed efforts at digital transformation, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and the interesting thing is you start reading a paper like that and you're like, okay, I know the angle that this paper is taking because there's a technology company and they're trying to show you that it doesn't have to be failed, but you're immediately, you're put in that. And what I find myself doing as a reader of that is immediately poking holes in the argument, right? No matter how good the argument is, I start immediately poking holes. Instead of the white paper or the thought leadership piece, letting me come to my own conclusions, sort of letting me self-discover this answer, which is so much more powerful. When you're writing a piece of thought leadership. And I've done it. I know I've done it. In the past. It's like, I'm sure if you went back through all my stuff that I've written, I know I've put a loaded question in there. But now that I've seen it, it's hard for me to unsee it, right? And it's like, I'm just really trying hard not to do that much anymore.
Yeah. Isn't it, some of that, though, about that narrative is that people just think they have to front load their point of view into something very quickly, and that's what this is all about. Whereas what really is your thought leadership paper trying to achieve? It's trying to achieve you looking like a thought leader, right? And so you don't actually need to force your point of view down their throat in the first paragraph, do you?
That's right. There are ways to structure your we've basically adopted the academic paper structure. That's how most thought leadership is created these days, right?
Yeah.
Thesis, here it is. Let me run it down your throat in the first paragraph, and then let me support that argument with some fancy pie graphs and some research that I've culled off the internet, and then let me give you the 10 ways of how to, and then let me illustrate kind of why my solution is the only way to solve it. And then basically, so you're making your argument, and then that's the end of the paper or the presentation or what. I mean, how many, sort of conference sessions have you sat at?
Oh, true.
All that thing, sort of, the first few slides are, did you know that Facebook is as big as many countries? And did you know that supports my thesis that things are really difficult and fundamentally different? And then 14 more slides about, here are the top 10 reasons that you need to solve this problem. And then, basically, here's why we solve it better than anybody, because here's a case study.
Is that because we've all got the same attention span as a goldfish? That's got to be in there somewhere, right?
You just like picked up a stick and wanted to stick it through the bars and poke the bear, right? Is that what you...
Yeah, but you're absolutely, there's that formulaic nature to those things. But I guess what you're going to argue for is telling a story, right?
Well, I don't think necessarily the academic structure of thought leadership is bad per se. I mean, I've read many an academic paper that was compelling, right? I mean, and really good and entertaining and was written well and, and had me had me hanging at every page turn, right? I mean, I don't necessarily think it's bad. It's in many ways, but yes, ultimately it is there is a storytelling structure where you want to set up the ordinary world, you want to introduce a resistance to that change, and then you want to resolve that change. That's just classic, simple storytelling structure that would fit an academic paper or really anything. So yes is the headline, but I don't think it's the underlying structure that's the problem. It's the way that we make our arguments, in the assumptions that we make with our audience and this is especially true in marketing, where we are starting with that loaded question. We are starting with the answers, we want them so fast to get to the right answer that we give away the ending, right? You know what I mean? The equivalent would be sort of like, open up and a giant spaceship is shooting a smaller spaceship, and we understand that Princess Leia has some secret plans that the Empire wants, and then the next scene is basically Darth Vader dying, right? I mean, it's like we wanted so quickly to not lose their attention, we gave away the ending before even telling the rest of the story, and that's so much of what thought leadership is today. It's like Company X was having this incredibly horrible, challenge doing this one thing, but they chose this solution, and now everything is unicorns and rainbows. And and then you start introducing the problems and the implications of those changes and everything like that. And the salespeople or somebody goes, no, don't say anything bad, because they might stop reading there. And if they stop reading there, then they'll think that, it's nothing but problems and challenges. It's like, it makes you want to tear your hair out.
Yeah, I was just working with a client talking about the helping them with a template for their case studies. And the thing they injected in the middle of it, they were doing all the normal stuff, this is what happened, this were the results, and why did they get the results? Because they implemented this software. And I said, well, what about the journey? What about where they got from that previous point to this point? Tell a little bit about that. Did they go through this arduous selection process? Did they try something else first? How did they actually arrive at that thought? And that makes a much more interesting case study to read then.
No doubt. I mean, and where did they run into trouble, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what didn't they account for? What didn't, as part of this change, so often in the customer case study, we write this piece that says, once they selected us, everything was perfect. Right? And of course that's not true. And people see that right away. For example, I want to read the content management, enterprise content management, because this is something you and I both share, obviously. I want to read the content management implementation case study that really tells the story of a content management system implementation, because you and I both know that there's no such thing as a flawless content management implementation. It just doesn't exist. They're always over budget, understaffed, under-resourced, technology fails. There are problem, and they're interesting stories, and sometimes they're good on the other side, and success happens. But I want to read a the real one, the behind the scenes one.
You'd be definitely bucking the trend then. It'd be a bit like what you were talking about a few weeks ago. If people were more honest on their sign up pages, right, on their call to actions about what exactly you're going to do with their data. Can you imagine that vendor that does that, and then when you download it, actually gives them the truth of what would happen.
Here's what's going to happen when you implement this enterprise DAM system. You're going to hate your life for the next 18 months. IT people are going to use your name in vain. Contracting is going to pull you into their office at least 5 times to talk about over budget and over scope. You are going to hate life for 18 months. On the other side of it, it's going to be fantastic.
So hang in there, kid.
Hang in there.
And here's an interview with somebody who went through that same process.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, but I one of the structures that I go back to, and it's probably, you're brilliant with these storytelling structures, and you talk about them much better than me. Is it Andy Raskin's best sales deck he ever saw or something. Are you familiar with this, where he's got that sort of 5-point structure of, that there's a challenge in the world, there's going to be winners and losers, a glimpse of the promised land, what else, and it ends up with evidence. And I always pick those when I'm writing anything. I pick that kind of structure to write like that. Is that what you do as well?
What I try and do to the best of my ability is, I've got a little model that we teach in our workshops that has worked for me. And it's a story structure, that I got actually from a friend of mine, who was writing for, basically he does a class on screenwriting and how to structure stories for screenwriting, and basically how to structure a premise to your story. And it's basically the 4 questions. There are 4 questions that I ask, which are: 1, who is the human hero, right? Who is the human of this story? 2, what is the resistance? What do they want? Basically, I should say. 2nd, what do they want? And what is the goal? What are they from everything from kill a 35-foot shark, to climb a mountain, to solve a murder, to win in their digital transformation. 3 is, what is the resistance? What's in their way? All the things that are in their way, including their own self limitations. And then 4, what is the truth? What is the change? What do they ultimately end up with? And I think, Reskin's sort of best sales deck, that it very much follows that sort of structure. And I like it. His that sort of idea is really good. I think I really like that idea. But it's classic story structure, which is and button therefore, right? And button therefore is the simplest story structure there is, which is setting up your ordinary world, and and this happened, but which is the resistance, but then this happened, therefore here's how they changed to address that. That's the simplest story structure there is. Dorothy was in this wonderful place called Kansas, and she was bored, and she really wanted out of there, and she was really in this black and white sort of trying to wish her way out, but then this old woman wanted to come and take her dog away, and the huge tornado was coming, therefore winds up in Oz and meets up with all these people, blah blah blah.
And then each of those characters has that same has their own story in that same way. That's right. The beauty of that film, isn't it? Or that story. That's fantastic. And so I like that. And do you know what I nearly did then? I nearly started writing notes on what you were suggesting there. It was, and not that I'm demeaning. I think it could be perfectly, but I don't usually write notes when I'm interviewing somebody on the podcast. That was really good. I'm going to listen to that again, because I think that getting that story structure right, it also makes you create something that's worth reading, that's entertaining. I know it's business, but it's entertaining to read, isn't it?
It's more fulfilling for sure. Whether it's thought leadership or whether it's fiction or whether it's, when the way I like to say it is, whenever you close a book, put down a white paper, come out of the movie theater, turn off Netflix, and you're unsatisfied, right? You're unsatisfied with that experience. It's because there's holes in the story, right? And they haven't met those needs. You sort of walk out going, you walk out of the horror movie going, no, there's no way that guy would have not gone into the car and gotten away when he was behind the farm and the guy was running after. He would have totally. What are you talking about? He would have totally picked up that. That's ridiculous. When you're it's because there's a hole in the story. You haven't sufficiently met the pressure points of those 4 areas of the resistance and the and all of that when you're looking for it. And when you are satisfied is when you've been able to self-discover that truth, that change, and you go, wow, I really believe that, right? Or I was willing to suspend my disbelief, along and go along in the story. It's like when you walk out of Star Wars and you're like, believing in the force and holding up your hand and controlling somebody and say, these are not the droids you're looking for. You bought in, right? You believed it, right? You have changed your belief. And that's where that's where the value of a great piece of content is.
Oh, that's a wonderful picture to be left with. For sure. Thank you very much, Robert. That was, that was just excellent. I love talking about storytelling with you, and I enjoyed my drink, and you recommended a lovely place to be. But if people want a bit more of Robert Rose and they spin the dial on the interwebs, where will they find you?
Well, you'll find me on all the social media channels and blah, blah, blah. But basically, the best place to find me is my blog and my website, which, of course, is contentadvisory.net.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll include a link to that in the show notes and to you on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thank you very much, Robert. And will I see you in the bar next week?
I think you will, yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to it, mate. And see you then.
Absolutely.
Cheers, buddy. Bye. Thank you, Robert. I very much enjoy those conversations, as you might notice. So that's a wrap on episode 33 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. Thank you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track, and jiving along with us. Thanks again to Sabrina for the conversation, to Robert for the inspiring cocktail, and to our wonderful Rockstar CMO house band who have rocked out another issue. I will, of course, include links to the latest issue of Rockstar CMO and my guests in the show notes. And if you like my guests, please give them a mention, click their links, follow them, and take a look at their work. I really appreciate their time, so please show them some love and tell them I sent you. So does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I would love to know what you think. Drop us some feedback, a review, subscribe, share, or just keep listening. I'm glad you're here. Next week, I again use this podcast as an excuse to grab a conversation with somebody interesting, as I'll be chatting to Catherine Strachan, founder of Edinburgh-based content marketing agency Copyhouse. Until then, I've been your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of RockstarCMO.com, and I hope you'll again join us next week here at Rockstar CMO FM.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.